Manny, good to see you. How you doing? Evening. How you been? T, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Probably change in a bit. Let's see. Dennis, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Artistic, good to see you. How you doing? How you going? George, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? The title says episode 226. It's technically episode 227. When I went to change it last minute, it didn't change, but yeah, it's episode 227. So let's do a breakdown of what we're going to be talking about tonight's live, because we have news compared to what's happened yesterday, essentially. We have the Fed essentially coming out and saying that they're never going to be holding Bitcoin or any sort of crypto asset, so they're never going to be changing their things and so on. How's what's happened to Popcat? Do you think it will come? Do you think it will pick up again? I don't know what Popcat is, I'll be honest. Is it a crypto project? Is it a meme coin? If it is, then most likely it's not going back down. Or it's not going back up. You look like. Yeah. Okay. So yesterday I talked about how the Fed is, coming out and talking about how Bitcoin is not a project they're going to be holding, and crypto regulations isn't what they're really looking forward to. It's never going to happen in the Fed. Well, today we have updates on that matter that apparently the Trump administration essentially is looking into the idea that the Fed can be holding Bitcoin and they can be holding some sort of crypto assets moving forward. So, mixture of news to go through on tonight's live. And it's positive news, and there's some war news and some regulation news to go through. But on tonight's live, episode 227 of the CMF Live. Sorry, let me just see if I can change it. I'll just leave it. Episode 227 of the CMF Live. We're going to be talking about the Blockchain Association. We're also going to be talking about on tonight's live regarding Congress essentially discussing a bill so that the Fed, Jerome Powell, can hold Bitcoin or crypto assets. Something he said he's never going to do, is never going to be possible. It can be possible by the looks of it because they're looking into it. We're also going to be talking about T-Bank to revolutionize essentially investments and blockchain-powered tokens. It's a product, essentially a bank that's coming out of Russia. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding Ohio introducing a second bill for essentially a Bitcoin reserve bill. We're going to be talking about the SEC preparing for a potential government shutdown aimed at a congressional essentially impasse. We're also going to be talking about tonight's live regarding Trump, essentially President-elect Trump is thinking about abolishing the whole US debt ceiling so that the government doesn't go into a shutdown. We're also going to be talking about the Bank of International Settlements in terms of CBDCs on tonight's live. We're going to be talking about 21 shares of registered Polkadot Trust Fund in Delaware. We're going to be talking about Franklin Templeton's essentially a crypto ETF now seeking SEC approval. We're also going to be talking about a BNB trust that's opening up essentially the first ever publicly US BNB trust that's going to be happening. We're going to be talking about South Korea in terms of their crypto focus, because South Korea is still having some sort of issues with their governments and so on. But apparently their crypto focus is there. They're still working on rules and regulations, and they're going to be bringing out rules and regulations, and they don't want to feel behind from the United States market space. We're also going to be talking about El Salvador on tonight's live as well regarding the International Monetary Fund. Apparently the International Monetary Fund has finally got to El Salvador, and they're thinking about reducing some sort of Bitcoin holdings when it comes to the retail section. We're going to be talking about Mara Holdings as the International Monetary Fund tells El Salvador to slow down on their Bitcoin holdings. A US mega corporation, Mara Holdings, CBDCs is also adding $1.53 billion to their BTC portfolio. So as El Salvador is getting told to slow down on Bitcoin, US corporations are essentially expanding on their Bitcoin holdings. We're also going to be talking about Russia, essentially India and China. We're going to be talking about BRICS on tonight's live as well. There's some new updates on that matter. We're also going to be talking about Ripple versus SEC on tonight's live in terms of where it's going to be going towards. So, mixture of news to go through on tonight's live regarding Ripple versus SEC, regarding essentially Russia, China, India, BRICS nations in general, regarding South Korea, regarding new essentially trust lines that are opening up with a BNB trust, a Polkadot trust, a Franklin Templeton trust, or an ETF and an ETP, Mora Holdings, mixture of news to go through. And the Fed is going to be able to hold crypto assets by the looks of it. Something that they said it cannot be done yesterday, Jerome Powell's famous speech, but it can be done by the looks of it. So before we go for any of those news topics, and the Blockchain Association news is the first one we're going to be covering on tonight's live. This is the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this is episode 227. I know it says episode 226 on X, but it's actually episode 227. Somehow the title is stuck. Now, it's not somehow, it's because I forgot to change it, but welcome to the CMF Live. You're watching this for the first time ever. It stands for Crypto Mouse Family. And on this live, I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Vital information for you to know about regarding the world transforming into a digital space. We also do Q&As on this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. So let's go inside the comment section first before we go for the first news, which is the Blockchain Association. Yeah, let's go for the comment section first. If you're watching this for the first time ever, welcome. If you're a regular, let's go CMF. And thank you so much to everybody that's retweeting this live right now on X. I'm getting notifications. Thanks so much to everyone that's retweeted this live, who's liked this live on X, who's put a comment outside the video on X. And thanks so much to everyone on YouTube who's also essentially liked this live as well and put a comment outside the live. So let's see what's going on inside the comment section. We go straight into the first news. Morning, Miles of CMF. Shelly, good to see you as well. How you doing? Morning, Shelly. How you been? Can you explain a government shutdown? What happens? Yes. In terms of a government shutdown, is basically when they're running out of budgets. So Congress needs to pass a law where essentially they can fund government operations. And apparently they have run out of money. I'm guessing all their money is in Zelensky's pocket in Ukraine. But the billions of dollars they've been sending into Ukraine, and by the looks of it, they can't withstand to hold their SEC doors open. The SEC actually said that they're not able to pay people their wages. The CFTC is going to be some sort of a shutdown as well. If it does happen, most likely it won't be happening. But a government shutdown is basically any sort of government entity will be shut down because of budget reasons. So it's one of the reasons. There's multiple reasons, but that's one of the major ones that the retail section will be affected from. That's basically what a government shutdown is. It is what's going on right now inside the United States, but we're going to be talking about the government shutdown. We're also going to be talking about how they're fixing that situation so it doesn't happen. Trump is the one actually fixing it so it doesn't happen. Hello, Miles. Hope you've had a for us tonight. Let's go, Mickey. Good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Miles. How are you? Callie, I'm doing great. Good to see you. How you doing? How you've been? Good evening, brother Miles and the rest of the CMF family. Funky brother. Good to see you. How you doing? How you've been? Hi, CMF and Miles. Slow good to see you. How you doing? How you've been? More reds, more bleeding. Miles, what is going on, brother? Government shutdown situation. Is there a closed meeting today with Ripple and SEC? It's rumored, not true. Even Miles and CMF, Joe, good to see you. How you doing? There is a rumor going around that there is a closed door meeting with the SEC and Ripple. It could be a possibility, but I would say the SEC has bigger things on their mind right now, which is their doors are about to be closed because they're running out of money. So, but there is a rumor going around regarding Ripple versus Ripple and SEC having a closed door meeting. On their website, it technically doesn't state it's Ripple and SEC that's going to have a sit down. It just says SEC closed door meeting. So we really don't know who they're sitting down with. But they are essentially having budget issues, and the SEC has declared that they're not going to be being able to pay their staff members their wages in any sort of a way for the time being, essentially, until the bill passes by Congress where they can get a budget to move forward. Now, the first news we're going to be talking about tonight's live essentially is from the Blockchain Association. I'm going to answer also the question of more reds, more bleeding. Miles, what is going on, brother? It's mainly to do with a government shutdown situation, but let's talk about this, and then we'll go straight into that, because there's two pieces of news that I'm going to be sharing with you that's relatable to your question of, Funky Brother, why is the market essentially bleeding even more? The Blockchain Association has hosted policy summits, calls for crypto regulations and national security. The Blockchain Association inside the United States has asked for a sit-down with every sort of government entity or any sort of crypto companies. Lawmakers, industry leaders, and blockchain innovators gathered this week to discuss the future of crypto policies and their impact on national security. The Blockchain Association hosted this third annual policy summit in Washington, D.C., and the lawmakers, essentially industry stakeholders and representatives from the decentralized infrastructure sectors in attendance. The event focused on aligning essentially blockchain innovation with regulatory clarity and national security priorities, according to essentially the CEO of crypto PR firm Throne PR. Now, Throne PR's attended the summit and shared his observations on the notes. Now, he's also shared this with news outlets of what was discussed in this meeting. So here it is. The summit brought together policymakers, including House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Congressman Mike Flood, and Congressman Wiley Nickel, to address challenges and opportunities in regulating digital assets. The discussions revolved around stablecoin regulations, security laws, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. The response from the members of Congress, the administration, and the regulatory agencies has grown tremendously, said essentially Dave, the Executive Vice President, Head of Government Relations at Blockchain Association. That speaks to the complete 180 degrees turn to the industry has gone through in perceptions of crypto and blockchain technology. It seems like the US is on board for crypto regulations. Congress is on board, actually. Mike Flood essentially highlighted the need for a state and federal corporation to avoid essentially overregulation, expressing optimism about the future collaborations between the SEC and the essentially CFTC. In a video press, President-elect Donald Trump commended the summit, reaffirming his administration's commitment to supporting blockchain innovation while addressing national security concerns. The Blockchain Association had previously called on President-elect Donald Trump and Congress to prioritize 5 key essentially crypto actions during the administration's first 100 days. A major focus of the event was the role of decentralized physical essentially infrastructures, networks, and enhancing national security. Representatives from the blockchain projects like CEAS, Filecoin, and Helium discussed how decentralized data solutions can address vulnerabilities in centralized systems, particularly in safeguarding sensitive information and user privacy. The summit also saw industry representatives urging regulators to adapt practical policies, and concerns were raised about the SEC's expanded dealer rule and its potential to stifle innovation. There's lots of collaborations between the government and the private sector to get blockchain technology adapted quite quickly. And we could even imagine, said Joseph Lee, co-founder of CES, just recently we went from Capitol Hill to educate US representatives and senators about our technology. So it seems like Filecoin, Helium, and CES were at this essentially event talking about how their data projects can essentially safeguard national security matters inside the United States. Now, there were congressmen at this event. Trump even made a speech about this event. And they're talking... What this event actually tells us is that whatever Jerome Powell or the Biden administration is trying to put out there, that America's not heading towards a crypto innovation type of situation, it is, because congressmen are having sit-downs with regulators and crypto firms, and so is Trump. And they're all on board on the idea of removing essentially SEC stifling power and bringing some crypto regulations, connecting the CFTC with the SEC to bring the regulations in no matter what. They're actually having discussions of how even blockchain can help safeguard essentially national security matters. They're talking about how regulations can help with stablecoin procedures inside the United States. They're also talking about how they can do domestic and international payments and get institutions and banks involved. So it's all positive moving forward. In other words, the market might seem slightly negative for the time being, one, because of Jerome Powell's stupid speech yesterday, but also on Jerome Powell's stupid and moronic speech yesterday, how the Fed will never hold Bitcoin or will never get involved in cryptocurrencies, and that it's never going to happen. Congress is discussing a bill to allow the Fed to hold Bitcoin. So Jerome Powell's famous speech yesterday, we will never hold Bitcoin, and we will never be doing that in any sort of a way. Congress today is having a sit-down that the Fed can also hold Bitcoin. Speaking in an interview, essentially, Senator Cynthia Luminous outlined a plan to authorize the Federal Reserve to purchase and hold Bitcoin. integrating it as a key asset in the country's financial essentially strategy. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell stated in his recent essentially FOMC meetings that the institutions currently lacks the legal authority to own Bitcoin. Cynthia Luminis aims to change that through new legislations. I want to give them so that they can hold it. Her proposal envisions the US government purchasing 200,000 Bitcoins annually over 5 years, totaling 1 million Bitcoins. And holding it for at least 20 years based on projections, this reserve could grow to a value of $16 trillion over time. I want our federal government to have a strict Bitcoin reserve that can help back the US dollars, Luminis said. Cynthia Luminis also emphasized that a Bitcoin reserve could provide several benefits, including strengthening the US dollar and mitigating the challenges posed by the nation's significant debt. The proposal also suggesting essentially transforming approximately 200,000 Bitcoins from the US asset forfeit fund seized during law enforcement operations into the reserves. Despite Bitcoin's volatility, Cynthia Luminis views it as an ideal essential streak asset, likening it to the digital gold is an infinite source. Only 21 million Bitcoins will be mined, she said, underscoring its scarcity and potential for long-term value growth. So not enough people honestly are talking about this inside the crypto space, because what dragged the entire market space down yesterday was 2 or 3 reasons. One, Jerome Powell coming out and saying they're pausing rate cuts in general, and we're most likely only going to be having 2 rate cuts coming next year, which didn't really help the stock market. And then 2, him talking about how essentially the Fed will never hold Bitcoin, it will never essentially go towards crypto, it will never change when it comes to crypto. That didn't really help the crypto market space. Even though they did a 25 basis rate cut, he bashed both sides of the market space. No rate cuts means the stock market goes collapsing sideways. Essentially pausing on rate cuts for next year. And then second of all, him mentioning regarding Bitcoin with that plant question from the journalist. But then today we have essentially Cynthia Luminis talking about, Senator Cynthia Luminis talking about how what the Fed mentioned yesterday, where they can't hold Bitcoin or they can't purchase it or hold it any sort of way, and it's never going to change. Cynthia Luminis is saying we're changing that. We're bringing regulations in so that they can do that. But why didn't Jerome Powell mention that yesterday? Because he's a manipulator. And there's not enough people talking about this inside the crypto space right now that Cynthia Luminis actually said they can, and we're looking into it. But according to Jerome Powell yesterday, no, we can't, and it's never going to change. You see how much of a manipulator Jerome Powell is for the entire market space? This is why Donald Trump wanted to get rid of Jerome Powell. But honestly, I haven't seen one person inside the crypto space talk about how Cynthia Luminis said they can. Not a single person I haven't seen inside the crypto space actually talk about this today. Now, moving on essentially from Jerome Powell's speech on how Cynthia Luminis said that they can actually hold crypto assets and the Blockchain Association news to Russia. But before we go through the Russian news, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the Russian news. As I said previously, this is a live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Okay. Let's see what's going to say in the comment section. So I'll just change the title on X. For some reason, it was still saying episode 226. It's actually episode 227 of the CMF Live. Good evening, Miles. How are you, Kelly? I'm doing great. Funky brother, good to see you as well. How you doing? Good evening, brother Miles and the rest of the CMF family. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? More Reds. Yes, we're gonna get them all, and we just did already. Evening, Miles and CMF. Joe, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Is there a closed door meeting over there as well? Hello, Miles. Richard, good to see you as well. How you doing? Evening, Miles and CMF. Tor, good to see you as well. How you doing? Greetings, Miles and family. Lena, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Evening, Miles and CMF. Jason, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Miles, I think to swap my file ICP and SOL to XRP, X11, HBAR, is that a good idea? Sure. I mean, you're not changing them into bad projects, to be fairly honest. You're not changing them into any sort of bad projects, to be fairly honest. XRP, X11, and HBAR is great assets. File, ICP, and SOL makes sense why you want to do that. File actually could have some sort of future ahead of itself. I mean, they just had to sit down with congressmen. Filecoin had sit-downs with essentially congressmen, and Donald Trump even made a speech about it, how regarding national security and how data brokers can do major things. But then again, financial category is #1 category, so it's not a bad idea if you want to do that. Not financial advice in a sort of a way. Evening, Miles and CMF. Peg, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles. Good evening. Yod, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Will, please check out Red Belly Network, Real World Assets. If you want to get direct, put it inside the comment section. I'll take a look at it and put a comment back at you. Just put a comment inside this live, outside the live, I mean, and then I'll take a look at the project for you and let you know. No problem. Because I need to see if they have any sort of contracts in place, licensing in place, and what they're trying to build. Are they going to be in 5 years' time? And is there a possibility this project get any sort of fundings for it to go back up? So if you want me to take a look at it, put a comment outside live as well. I'll put a comment back for you. Hello, Miles and CMF. Jules, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? Ghost Spinner, good morning, Miles and CMF. Good to see you as well, Ghost Spinner. How you doing? How you been? Vinod, gold. Gold is a great asset. Now, T-Bank. To revolutionize investments with blockchain-powered tokens and products. It seems like that Putin is spearheading towards rules and regulations when it comes to crypto assets, and is not slowing down, especially now that Trump is coming into power January 20th, and America is still aiming for that title of cryptocurrency hub, essentially for the rest of the world to follow. And one bank in particular in Russia is also spearheading to the idea of a complete digital bank. So here it is. Russia's largest neobank, T-Bank, is set to enter blockchain by launching essentially tokenized investment products. The new digital financial assets will be available to retail investors in early 2025. The bank aims to partner with Moscow's based blockchain firm Antinos to develop and launch these offerings. Therefore, it will become the first Switzerland and the banks to enter the fast-growing digital asset businesses in Moscow. T-Bank aims to broaden its essentially service mix by offering blockchain-based investment products such as tokenized financial instruments. And these offerings will use essentially blockchain technology and automated smart contracts to slash operational costs and develop new products. The bank expects these products to generate high returns, including up to 27.5% per year on certain assets. The Russian central bank also cleared the bank to start issuing DFAs in March 2024, having essentially previously granted T-Bank permission to issue them, like other Russian banks, including Sberbank. By the way, Sberbank is a Ripple partner, Alpha Bank, and the bank has been entering the DFA space. The bank's move is one of the several efforts by Russia's financial institutions to modernize and expand their digital offerings. Premium customers can trade essentially DFAs by the end of 2024, but they won't be able to fully roll out until early 2025. A large Russian mining company is also backing the essentially platform where T-Bank's new digital asset offerings will be available. A variety of assets will be tokenized and made into investments and products by the bank, loans including smart essentially factoring portfolios, bonds with floating interest rates, and etc. And the bank will further create art tokens based on digital rights to income and the sale of essentially objects of art essentially brings in. The scholarship token is another product that will be essentially funding scholarships for top universities and students. This is an idea of what we're heading towards inside of a digital world. Russia's trying to achieve with T-Bank is an idea of what we're going to be getting from our own jurisdictions. Not saying everything Russia is going to do, we're going to be getting, but here and there, some of these things we are going to be getting. The platform also provides a safe, regulatory, essentially regulated environment for issuing and trading tokenized assets. These products differ from public blockchains and assets such as Bitcoin or Ethereum because they run on private blockchains governed by Russian central banks. So in other words, if we had it in the UK, it would be the Bank of England. If you had it in America, the Fed. If you had it essentially in the EU, it would be the European Central Bank. If you had it anywhere else, it would be your own central banks. So this is a product that's being offered through the Central Bank of Russia. In other words, a product that could be offered through our central banks to the retail section as well. T-Bank said the new products will give investors access to a secondary market and thus liquidity. The bank hopes to woo many investors, targeting hundreds of thousands of participants by mid-2025. Due to the existing factors, the CEO also said, "We are actively working on increasing the market size in months ahead." T-Bank's decision to enter the blockchain space is an attempt to stay current in what is becoming a essentially massive digital financial environment going into 2025. This will be a position T-Bank as a digital bank first with its blockchain token products in a good position to continue enhancing its ecosystems, and other banks in Russia is racing to develop their own essentially digital economy. The bank's advantage in its efforts to introduce the new financial products or attract investments and its 43 million essentially customer base. The bank will also use its partnerships with the platforms that it does have to navigate the complexities of digital asset market spaces. And T-Bank also hopes the expertise and infrastructures around blockchain technology will serve the bank's projects based on essentially blockchain technology. Russia's bank's efforts to leverage blockchain technology for financial services aligns with the wider essentially trends. The upcoming launch of the blockchain token investment products by T-Bank in Russia means a serious move towards digital financial assets in 2025. The bank is set to launch innovative tokenized products with permissions from the Central Bank of Russia, aiming to redraw the investment map. The bank's success depends on the market demands and regulatory developments in the digital asset sector as it moves forward with its plans. The only reason essentially Russia is doing this and spearheading into this digital economy in 2025 is because they know Trump is trying to spearhead America into a digital economy. That is the only reason, honestly, why Russia is doing this. It's the same reason why China is thinking about opening their doors to Bitcoin again. Same reason why Hong Kong yesterday announced they're spearheading their rules and regulations and their licensings when it comes to exchanges. Same reason why Australia said they're actually spearheading into regulations as well. Japan said the exact same thing. Saudi Arabia said the exact same thing. Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, even South Korea, which we're going to talk about later on today, said the exact same thing. They're still spearheading towards regulations because of Trump. 2025 hasn't changed. The plans for 2025 regarding regulations, regarding licenses, regarding a new SEC chairman, regarding a new CFTC chairman, regarding the FDIC chairman resigning, it still hasn't changed. We're still going towards rules and regulations, licensings, banks and institutions, more ETFs. All of that is still here to come. Nothing's changed inside the market space. What has happened is, as usual, is sorry about that, a little bit of turbulence inside the market space. That's all that's happened. And turbulence is another word for market manipulation. Apologies about that. But nothing has changed. Countries are still spearheading towards that movement in 2025 for a digital economy. And just to put it into a little bit more perspective, for example, even American states are still moving towards a whole Bitcoin reserve idea, rules and regulations. For example, Ohio today said Ohio is introducing their second Bitcoin reserve bill. The state of Ohio has introduced a second Bitcoin reserve bill as crypto legislation gains momentum across the US, essentially ahead of Donald Trump's essentially sit down. Ohio's House of GOP Majority Whip Steve proposed legislations to allow the state to manage a strict Bitcoin reserve. Satoshi Act Fund founder Dennis Porter shared this moment. But the bill follows a similar proposal from representatives of Derek Merlin, which also would essentially position Ohio as a Bitcoin reserve holder and essentially explain that this legislation would enable Ohio to allocate up to 10% of its state's controlled funds towards a Bitcoin stockpile. Bitcoin can help tap into Ohio's existing energy reserves. Ohio is famed for having massive natural gas reserves and competitive energy grids. The Ohio GOP Majority Whip provided no specific timelines for the bill's essentially passage, but expressed hope that the House bureaucracy would not delay progress anymore. In American legislators, in conversations, have increasingly focused on BTC and crypto-related proposals following the president-elect Donald Trump's victory in the recent election. And earlier, Porter also said that the Bitcoin reassurance was spotted assembling essentially momentum in the over 12 states and counting. Texas, Ohio, Pennsylvania. There's about 12 United States that are all aiming for a Bitcoin reserve, that are all aiming for crypto regulations. Nothing has changed for 2025. So this is like a little bit of turbulence before we go into 2025 and the market goes absolutely ballistic because of Donald Trump and rules and regulations and essentially new SEC chairman, new CFTC chairman, banks and institutions get involved, a multitude of altcoin ETFs happening because Gary Gensler is not there anymore to stifle it, and neither is the FDIC chairman. So nothing's changed regarding the plans of 2025. And as much as Jerome Powell wants to come out with his stupid speech regarding yesterday, and then today, Cynthia Lummis is coming out, Senator Cynthia Lummis is coming out today and stating that she basically doesn't know why the Fed said they can't hold Bitcoin and they'll never do it or they'll never go into crypto, because Senator Cynthia Lummis today said they can and we're looking into it. But again, nobody's talking about that inside the crypto space, and they should be, because what brought the market down yesterday was that exact speech, and Cynthia Lummis is going against that speech, and she's a senator, but nobody's talking about it. So Nothing's changed. 2025 is still, the market is going to go absolutely ballistic. We're still going, all of those things are still happening, and the rest of the world is going to follow their footsteps. Now, SEC is what we're going to talk about next. Hi, Miles on CMF, Golden Dragon. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? And we're not that far off from 2025. So Joe Biden and the moronic crew who follows him can do whatever they want, stifle whatever they want, but this is their last try. And as much as, you know, they cause turbulence inside the market space with war scenarios or with alien scenarios or with moronic bill scenarios to fill their own pockets with, they can do whatever they want, but their time is running out. January 20th, that's it. They can't do any more stifling when it comes to innovation in crypto. They can't, you know, essentially create fake news on aliens that's trying to attack us. They can't create war scenarios because nobody's going to poke Putin anymore to create a war with Russia. No more billions of dollars into Ukraine's pockets and Zelensky's pockets. All of that will come to a stop. So they can do whatever they want, stifle the market space as much as they want to. And here's the positiveness about this, because there's every negative, there's a positive. The more they stifle the market space now, before January 20th, the more we can fill our pockets up with discounted prices. To every negative, there's always a positive. And I did say to consider any sort of situations from now until January 20th. I've been saying this for the longest time. From now until January 20th, before Trump comes in, I said they could pretty much pull anything. And they're pulling whatever they can, with Jerome yesterday's speech and then Save the Luminous going against this speech and saying, no, the Fed can hold crypto, and we're looking into it. Now, SEC prepares for a potential government shutdown, aimed congressional impasse. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, is preparing for a possible federal government shutdown, as shown in their recent notice. The agency put up on their SEC operational status notice on its website, noting it's preparing for a potential shutdown. In the event of essentially a federal government shutdown due to its essentially lapse, the appropriations of the SEC's operating status will change concurrently with the rest of the federal government. In accordance with the agency's plan for operating during a shutdown, the notice reads, as that plan essentially commences, we are currently preparing for a potential shutdown, the SEC said, with a focus on the market's integrity and investor protection and components of our mission. Interesting timing of a government shutdown, because now that the SEC is going towards a government shutdown, it means that the SEC doesn't have to look at any sort of crypto filings. The 4 to 5 filings for XRP ETFs, the SEC doesn't have to look into it anymore. Not that they were, but now they don't really have to look into it because they're going to a government shutdown. All the filings for the Solana ETFs, or the filings for the HBAR ETPs, or essentially any other filings that are related to blockchain companies, the SEC can now put on pause because they're going through a government shutdown. Very interesting timing on that matter. The SEC has stated that the database system that helps it tracking government filings will not be affected by the shutdown, but they won't be looking into any sort of filings for the time being. However, the routine reviews like these involving the ETF applications will be put on hold for now. Nonetheless, the SEC will still be able to take action against fraud and market manipulation. Thus, there will be no complete absence of enforcement, so they can still take action by suing crypto companies for no apparent reason. But any sort of filings done by crypto companies for ETFs or ETPs, we're going to have to pause that. We can't look into that for now. As Congress essentially fails, the House of Representatives' failure to vote on the baptism government funding bill has only increased the chances of a shutdown. As Congress fails to come up with a solution, services such as emergency services may be greatly affected, and non-essential federal employees may not be paid during the holiday season. A lot of people won't be getting their wages inside the US government. Other essential services that are likely to be affected include food and aid programs. In a related development, the Digital Chambers of Commerce has called on the SEC to change its approach to digital assets. The organization claims that the relationship should be rebuilt as Donald Trump is expected to become the president and may adapt a more positive approach to cryptocurrencies. The Digital Chamber of Commerce is telling the SEC, change your position on crypto assets before you go into a shutdown, because Trump is coming in and he's pro-crypto. But the SEC is going, nope, we're shutting down. They noted that the new administration may promise to adapt essentially a relatively less stringent regulatory stance than the current chair of the SEC, Gary Gensler. Recently, the Token Alliance Leadership Committee of Chambers met with the SEC's commissioners to discuss its 2025 digital asset policies and priorities. The proposals outlines essentially how the new administration should address crypto issues in the first 90 days of Trump's administration. I said the first 100 days are crucial. They're saying the first 90 days are crucial. Let's just stick with the first 100 days are very crucial in essentially Trump's administration for the crypto essentially sector. The chamber also pointed out that the SAB 121 and other available regulatory guidance were inadequate and adverse. Gensler, who announced essentially his resignation, recently was accused of adapting an enforcement-focused approach, according to reports by Paul Atkins, who will essentially be the person that's replacing Gary Gensler as the new SEC chairman in early, essentially 2025. So the person that's replacing Gary Gensler as the new SEC chairman has came out and essentially opened up a file on Gary Gensler for all the fraudulent behavior he's done inside the SEC. So the new SEC chairman is basically suing in some sort of a way Gary Gensler. By the looks of it, he's opened up a file on him. But what I'm really more interesting is the timing. These people are really trying to stifle in any sort of position America when it comes to crypto innovation, or America in general, because Jerome Powell's speech yesterday, the SEC today saying, well, we can't look at any more filings for crypto companies, because we're shutting down, but we're still going to sue crypto essentially companies that commit fraud, but we're not going to look at any sort of ETF filings or ETP filings or IPO filings from any sort of crypto companies, but we're still going to go around sue people for the time being until January 20th. When Gary Gensler loses his job because he's resigning. And at the same time, essentially, the SEC coming out and saying they're going to do that, President Trump calls on Congress to abolish the U.S. debt ceiling. President Trump has called on Congress to abolish the U.S. debt ceiling entirely, describing it as a meaningless psychological tool that serves essentially no practical purpose. Now, if they get rid of the debt ceiling, the U.S. debt ceiling, basically means that they can print quite a bit, which printing causes more inflation, I get. But all this time, they've been printing and feeding into Zelensky's pocket in Ukraine to start a war with Russia. But when it comes to their own people, when the American government, the Biden administration, because they're the ones in control, the Biden administration will openly print money and send to Ukraine to help to start a war. But they won't print money to save American jobs. They won't print money to save American government departments because people aren't going to get their wages by the looks of it now, unless they pass the bill. So Trump is saying, well, why do we have this psychological ceiling when it comes to printing, essentially? Because we print for that side, but we don't do it for ourselves. It's either print or don't print. If you're going to print, help us. Don't help other people. So in a recent interview, Trump made it clear he's ready to lead the charge if lawmakers agree to eliminate the borrowing limit, which currently caps how much money the federal government can borrow to pay its bills. The Democrats want to get rid of it. If they want to get rid of it, I would lead the charge, Trump reportedly said. He dismissed the debt ceiling as an outdated concept, suggesting that even experts aren't sure whether breaching it will result in catastrophic or prove any sort of major issues. It doesn't mean anything except psychologically, he said. The comments came essentially aimed rising tensions over a potential government shutdown, which could occur Saturday at midnight if lawmakers fail to pass the funding deal. Trump criticized the current negotiations, calling a bipartisan agreement to avoid a shutdown a democratic trap, is what essentially Trump is calling it, and taking aim at House Speaker Mike Johnson for what he described as unacceptable resolution. The United States is facing an unprecedented national debt crisis, with a total federal debt now exceeding $36 trillion. As of December 2024, publicly held debt makes it up to $29 trillion, of that figure, or 99% of the nation's gross domestic products, GDP. Projections show that the debt to GDP ratio could pass 100% in 2025 and may hit essentially 172% by 2054 if nothing changes. This year alone, interest essentially payments on the debt have skyrocketed by 34%, reaching $882 billion, more than the federal government spends on defense, Medicare, or children's programs. Meanwhile, the annual federal deficit is stuck at $1.9 trillion, essentially mirroring last year's figures. Government spending continues to outpace revenue thanks to a combination of tax cuts and high borrowing costs. With the federal funds essentially rates at the highest level in decades, the cost of financing the debt has surged, raising alarm bells among economists about long-term sustainability. Trump's stance on the debt ceiling comes against this backdrop of growing fiscal uncertainty. While Congress suspended the debt limit through January 2025 in a deal reached last year, the president essentially argued that the measures only delays eventual fights over borrowing authorities. He revealed he had discussed his concerns with Elon Musk before the billionaire took the X, formerly Twitter, to share similar views on government spendings. I told him if he agrees with me, he could put out that statement. And Trump said he described Elon Musk's perspective as aligned with his own, particularly on cost and concerns. So, America is going through a vote right now, leading up to Saturday. If Congress votes and it passes, then the SEC and government essentially departments don't shut down. And emergency services don't shut down either. If Congress doesn't pass the bill, then America's governments are shutting down. Government, essentially, government buildings and employees, a lot of people probably might lose their jobs during this Christmas season, during this New Year's season. A lot of people could probably lose their jobs. A lot of people won't get their wages. How crazy is that? Because the Biden administration will send, honestly, they will send billions of dollars into Zelensky's pocket, knowing they're going through this situation of a government shutdown because they're running out of a budget. But they're willingly sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. This is what I was talking about regarding yesterday, how the Biden administration is milking this country dry. Honestly, Biden's administration is milking this country's money dry. Is genuinely milking the US dry before they leave office. It's like a group of circus freaks were in control of the biggest country and the most powerful country on the planet. Genuinely, it was like a group of circus freaks just in charge of the biggest country and the most powerful country in the world for a span of 4 years and just did whatever they wanted. And Trump is trying to remove that ceiling, because if he doesn't, then we're going for a government shutdown, which isn't good, because if America goes for a shutdown, it'll be like a domino effect of the world following his footsteps. Because who do you think America borrowed money to? Everyone. The US has borrowed money to everyone. So if they go for a government shutdown, somebody has to pay up. That's pretty much the rest of the world. Now, Bank of International Settlements, moving on essentially from the Biden administration circus freak movements to the Bank of International Settlements. But before we go through that news, let's go start the comment section first. Hi, Miles and CMF. Golden Dragon, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Hi, Miles. Hope you're well. And hello to everyone inside of CMS. Good to see you. Adi, how you been? How's it going? Greetings, Miles and CMF. Ray, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, CMF. Susie, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good day, Miles and CMF. Mike, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? By the way, this is a live as well. If you do have any questions, anybody has any questions, don't be shy. Put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer the questions you may have. Hi, Miles and CMF. Hope you're all well. What's your thoughts on Pluton? Thank you, Sam. Put a message outside the live. I'll take a look into Pluton for you and reply back to your comments. No problem. Going to look into their partnerships, contracts, licensings, everything else to see if they do have any sort of future ahead of themselves. Casper is the best crypto out there, but all the people sleeping on it. Crypto steroids, Casper is a good project, but what Casper needs is some institutional backing for it to do well. Being very honest, Casper is a good project, but it needs some sort of institutional backing. And if it doesn't get institutional backing, it's not going to survive very long as the years go by. Now, all facts. They're going to try and wreck everything before switching power to Trump's administration. That's crazy work, though. Yeah, facts. Honestly, Ray. The Bank of International Settlements consultative group proposes a retail CBDC architecture. So as this whole situation with the circus freaks of Biden's administration is going on, we also have the Bank of International Settlements coming out with some information regarding retail CBDCs at the exact same time. The consultative group of the Bank for International Settlements has proposed a retail central bank digital currency CBDC architecture based on a hybrid approach, where issuance and governance of a CBDC is handled by a country's central bank, while commercial banks provide consumer-facing services. According to the Bank of International Settlements, the proposed CBDC framework that was announced today takes a modular approach to design and will focus on token-based models to promote privacy. However, the CBDC architecture will also support account-based models where users have specific accounts tied to an entity. The authors of the proposal wrote, "Privacy can be guaranteed by separating transactions from identity information, such as that the latter remains with private intermediaries and users. This helps to reduce risk and ensure greater privacy protections than in essentially any other sort of models. Despite promises of privacy, CBDCs are widely seen as a essential emphasis of permissionless finance, with lawmakers, individuals, and even central banks raising concerns about systematic risk and essentially privacy and visibility." Central banks don't care about privacy, but they keep on mentioning it. They care about the retail section's privacy. They couldn't care less about the retail section's privacy. But the timing also of this is interesting. As everybody's focused on the markets, on Jerome Powell's speech, on the US government shutdown, Bank of International Settlements today is releasing articles about CBDCs and the progress they're making. And essentially, retail CBDCs is pretty much on the go, and how all central banks of every jurisdiction will be coming out with CBDCs. But again, nobody will be paying attention to that because everybody's focused either on the US government shutdown or Jerome Powell's speech from yesterday, the liquidation that happened inside the market space, or the whole alien thing that's going on the news. And at the same time, the Bank of International Settlements is telling you we're not that far off. And retail CBDCs is pretty much on the way. And that every central bank will be issuing a retail CBDC. It's the timings that I always care about. Coordination is amazing. While focus is over there, they're talking about CBDCs. 21 Shares is what we're going to be talking about next. 21 Shares registered Polkadot Trust Fund in Delaware. A lot more essentially trusts are happening inside the crypto space for altcoins. Now, Eric, the Bloomberg ETF specialist analyst, did say yesterday that we're going to be getting a multitude of ETFs happening essentially in the market space in 2025. We're going to get a multitude of ETFs for altcoins happening in 2025 because of a Trump administration. And we're seeing more and more as the days go by signs of that. 21 Shares regarding their Polkadot Trust. 21 Shares successfully filed its Polkadot Trust Fund in Delaware, which essentially turned out to be a landmark moment for the company developing its own footprints inside the cryptocurrency investment space. The idea lies in increasing access to Polkadot's exposure for investors and the interoperable blockchain platform that much is talked about by their town due to its scalability. The Polkadot essentially trust fund is likely to have an appeal for both institutional and retail investors looking to diversify their portfolios with advanced blockchain solutions. Polkadot has gathered significant interest due to its ability to host numerous blockchains on one essentially network, which is expected to push innovation in the blockchain space. As a prominent participant in the digital asset arenas, 21 Shares has remained at the forefront of new investment products developments. This November, the company launched 4 new essentially ETPs within European market spaces, and these new ETPs are connected with Python network, Ondo, Render, New Protocol, each with solutions aimed at price of corals, tokenizations of assets, decentralized computing, and artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, Franklin Templeton also is one of the world's largest investment companies, has also made a move to jump into the crypto market space. Moving on to Franklin Templeton straight afterwards, Franklin Templeton's crypto ETF now seeking SEC approval as well. Franklin Templeton has filed an application with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) to approve a cryptocurrency index (ETF) that tracks Bitcoin and Ethereum. The proposed Franklin Templeton crypto ETF will provide investors with a regulated vehicle to seek exposure to these two leading cryptocurrencies. The ETF, if approved, would list on the Chicago Exchange, with Coinbase Custody Trust Company (LLC) serving as its digital asset essentially custodian. The Franklin Templeton crypto ETF is designed to track an index holding of Bitcoin and Ethereum in roughly equal measures, although with the potential for an additional cryptocurrency in the future isn't ruled out. So it could be Bitcoin, Ethereum, and something else even, or a multitude of crypto assets enrolled into one ETF, essentially coming from Franklin Templeton. Catalan, the head of investments and research at Sidron, essentially crypto bank, felt the index's ETF represented a neutral evolution for cryptocurrency investments in the same way investors normally invest in the S&P 500 ETFs. She shared and elaborated that the index-based crypto funds may soon become the mainstream investment vehicle for digital assets. However, cryptocurrency index ETFs are only able to reach Bitcoin and Ethereum due to their current regulation constraints. This product can't be traded on public exchanges before the SEC approves its registration, and at least one exchange has listed it. Well, obviously, we know that the SEC is not going to be approving anything because the SEC is getting prepared for a government shutdown. And they said we're not going to be looking into any sort of ETF or ETP filings or IPO filings with any relatable companies that belongs to the blockchain sector. But Sidron Bank is essentially coming out and talking about how Franklin Templeton is also, starting this new wave. Grayscale was the one that started this first wave of a multitude of crypto assets rolled up into one ETF. It's a representation of, you could say, the S&P 500 or the S&P 100 or so on, is what's actually happening inside the crypto space. And they're not mistaken. They're what Eric said, the Bloomberg ETF specialist analyst, talking about how we're going to get a multitude of ETFs happening in 2025 inside the crypto space regarding altcoins. It matches what Sidron Bank is essentially saying as well, that we're going to be, all this movement is happening. What also matches is Coinbase. Coinbase mentioned how they're creating the crypto 100 index and the crypto 50 index they're creating, similar to the S&P 500 scenarios. A lot of things are still happening in 2025. None of that has changed. But the issue is, from now until January 20th, anything could pretty much happen. As I said previously, from now until January 20th, I've been saying this for the past week or two as well. From now until January 20th, anything could pretty much happen because the Biden administration is still in control. And Trump's coming January 20th. On the topic of essentially a Polkadot trust and a Franklin Templeton trust happening, and an S&P equivalent 100 happening for Franklin Templeton, we also have the first ever BNB trust that's going to be happening in 2025 as well. Opris Funds LLC, a US-based crypto investment firm, has announced that its Opris BNB Chain Trust is now publicly quoted on the QTCQX Best Markets. Interestingly, the fund happens to be the first in the US to provide exposure to BNB, the native token of the BNB chain ecosystem. It aims to offer a way for investors to access the cryptocurrency through traditional brokerages and IRR accounts. It's the official, essentially, press release this week obviously highlighted the BNB underpins various decentralized applications, DeFi protocols, and small contracts. And while it remains unavailable on centralized exchanges in the US, the latest fund would provide a means for investors to gain exposure using USD. Following the developments, Greg King, the CEO of Opris Fund, commented, "At Opris, we are committed to bridging the gap between traditional finance and digital assets, offering investment solutions for those looking to participate in the generational transformation enabled by blockchain technology. The fund of the Opris BNB Chain Trust underscores our focus on providing access to a premier crypto asset. Previously offered through private placements, the Opris BNB Chain Trust is now accessible to a broader audience via the market space." Confirming the news was Binance's co-founder and former CEO, CZ. CZ even tweeted about this, that this is pretty much the first ever BNB trust line in the US. The first publicly quoted, this was CZ tweeted out, OBNO, the first publicly essentially quoted US BNB fund. This was done with no involvements from me. I only learned about it in a couple of days ago. Strong community. At the time of writing, BNB is the fifth largest crypto asset by market cap. It reached an all-time high of above $780 in the first week of December, aimed at essentially a broader market rally. The price has since undergone minor corrections and is currently near a $702. BNB was still up by more than 182% of the past year, and despite this bullish momentum on the price front, BNB has faced essentially a surge in a sandwich attacks in November, with records of 35.5% of its block affected. These attacks, essentially involving MEV techniques and all front runnings and exploiters situations, have been happening on BNB, but it's been happening on quite a lot of chains, to be fairly honest. But what I'm more essentially impressed about is we're about to get our first ever BNB trust happening as well. We're about to get our first essentially ever Polkadot trust happening as well. First ever essentially a S&P 100 or S&P 500 equivalent of a crypto asset happening when it comes to crypto market space from Franklin Templeton as well. You can see that, you know, corporations, massive institutions in the US are still lining up to essentially bring out in 2025 regarding ETFs and ETPs and trust lines, because they know that no matter what these people pull before January 20th, Trump is still here to fix it, whatever mess they do pull before January 20th. Now, South Korea is what we're going to be talking about next. But before we talk about South Korea, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, this is a live, which means if you do have any questions, put it outside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer the questions you may have. So let's see what's going inside the comment section, and then we'll go straight into South Korea's news, which is also relatable to the crypto space, market space, due to the regulations, due to Trump's speech, and due to XRP. Hello, Miles and everyone. I'm sorry I joined. I just joined. I was sleeping. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. How you doing, brother? How you been? Ray, let's go. Semper, Miles, and CMF. Good to see you as well. Semper, how you doing? How you been? Even Miles, stacking that XDC. Let's go, Davey. How you doing? XDC is a great asset. Hello to my CMF on YouTube. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Hello from Chicago. Eric, how you doing? Hello from Chicago. Let's go, Eric. And what roller coaster is going on? Yes, definitely. Amazing how rate cuts freak out the crypto markets. Rate cuts don't freak out the crypto markets. That wasn't the issue. Rate cuts are a positive for the crypto market. The issue was what he said straight after the rate cuts regarding how the Fed will never hold Bitcoin. And then after that, there was other speeches where they said how the regulations will never change and so on. And then after that, there was some people around Congress that were talking about, well, the Democratic side were talking about how 2025 is not going to be what, you know, Trump thinks is going to be and so on. None of that helped the crypto space. So him talking about essentially how rate cuts are happening, 25 basis points, was good. Jerome Powell's speech yesterday started off good, ended very bad. He started off with 25 basis rate cuts. Market was like, yes. The crypto market was like, yes, 25 basis rate cuts, that's good. And then he went on to say, we're going to pause rate cuts in 2025 in general. We might not even have rate cuts. If we do, maybe just two. Bad. And then he went on to say, when a news journalist asked him a question of, what about Bitcoin or so on? And he said, well, we can't hold Bitcoin. It's never going to happen. It's never going to change. Bad. It started off good. 25 basis rate cuts. Great. Market was good. It's just the two things that he said afterwards. And then after that was done, there was a few other Democrats that bashed on the whole idea of Trump being able to have a crypto hub in America. That didn't really help either. So it was started off good, ended up bad. Because 25 basis rate cuts was actually good for the crypto space. It's just what he said after. He could have stopped talking, which could have ended very good for the market space, but he continued talking and ruined the whole thing. But Jerome Powell talking about how they can't hold Bitcoin or it's never going to change or so on. But then today you have Senator Cynthia Lummis talking about how they are looking into it and the Fed can hold Bitcoin. But Jerome Powell yesterday said they can't and it's never going to change, but they can and they are looking into it. But he didn't mention that yesterday when he was asked the question by a journalist who's definitely a plant. But yeah, amazing how rate cuts freak out the cryptos. They didn't freak it out. Is what he said afterwards that essentially freaked out the market space. Miles, I feel like we're on a speed date. You're talking very fast today, lol. Sorry about that, Shelly. Sorry about that, everyone, as well. I'm talking quite fast, but we do have quite a bit of news to go through as well. He must have a lot of news to get through. Yes, I do. Horizon Zen price predictions 25x looks like. What's your take? More money. Put it inside the comment section. I'll take a look into it, give a perspective. Just put a comment outside the video. I'll take a look into it after the live and give you a perspective on it. Now, South Korea. South Korea's news is crypto-related, Trump-related, crypto hub-related, and even XRP-related up to a certain extent. Because South Korea's #1 purchase for the retail section isn't all the institutions, isn't Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's actually XRP. So, and we all know that South Korea is also going through quite a bad situation right now, but they're still positive. South Korea's crypto focus remains strong despite their political challenges, the Deputy Prime Minister states. The Bank of Korea intervened as the won hit a 2008 low and stocks fell after Yoon's impeachment. Meanwhile, President Han Duck-seo reassured Biden that South Korea's foreign policies remain unchanged. This comes amid internal essential instability and external pressures, including a potential shift in the U.S. trade policies under President-elect Donald Trump. Chai also emphasized that despite the political disruptions, efforts to refine the crypto-related regulations remain on track, despite the domestic and international uncertainties. Yoon's controversial martial law declaration essentially led to his suspension, with the constitutional courts currently reviewing the case, leaving the nation uncertain. This political turmoil has delayed essentially discussions on crypto-related legislations, although trading volumes on major South Korean exchanges remain strong, reflecting continued interest inside the market space. In light of this, South Korea's exchange's chairman, Jong-in Cho, essentially called for a quick integration of cryptocurrencies in the country's framework. He stressed the need for regulatory actions on the crypto market space because it's growing rapidly. The Prime Minister also emphasized the importance of implementing the 2025 budget, essentially, for the ruling powers of the People's Party facing opposition from the Democratic Party. While the impeachment hasn't worsened essentially legislation's deadlock, there is hope it will essentially eventually lead to a renewed focus on essential economic reforms, including crypto regulations. Nevertheless, Cho reaffirmed the government's commitments to economic stability, stating, "We will manage the economy as stably as possible by gathering all the capabilities of the public and private sectors." He also highlighted that crypto regulation continues to be a priority in South Korea. The National Assembly recently announced a decision to postpone the introduction of crypto taxations until 2027. Explaining the move, Chow stated, "Since regulations and related essentially systems are still in their early stages, we decided to delay the launch of the crypto taxes. We believe essentially it's more appropriate to monitor how regulations develop before implementing taxations. This delay highlights the government's cautious stance, giving them time to essentially access the rapidly evolving crypto landscape and ensures that taxation measures align with a more stable regulatory framework." Chow discussed the ongoing efforts to create a strong regulatory framework, stating that the Bank of Korea's financial regulators and other relevant essential authorities are working essentially on new policies for the crypto space no matter what. And these efforts focus on how key issues such as customer protection, the legal status of crypto assets, and governance strategies for domestic crypto sectors. The country aims to balance innovation and risk with platforms like BitThumb and Upbit, reinforcing its position inside the global crypto market space. Addressing questions about the international impact of cryptocurrency policies, the Prime Minister especially mentioned Trump's suggestion for a street crypto reserve. Since the details of President-elect Trump's street crypto asset proposals haven't been made public yet, it's not the right time to essentially evaluate. Yet, we will take action once these and other proposals are more clearly defined, the Prime Minister said. This cautious response highlights South Korea's intentions to align its policies with the global trends while protecting its interests. South Korea is right now waiting for Trump to come into power so they can see what Trump's next steps are going to be. Deputy PM essentially Cho Sung-mok reassured the public that the government maintains a positive stance on crypto assets while emphasizing the need for a cautious approach, which is evident in the decision to delay crypto taxations until 2027. Although political challenges have slowed down progress on crypto legislations, South Korea continues to balance innovation with risk, ensuring its role in the global market and remains strong. The government's focus on economic stability and regulatory developments will be a key in shaping the sector's future, essentially, when it comes to crypto assets. So, South Korea, no matter the situation they're going on right now in South Korea, because their country is going through some sort of martial law type of situation, they're still focused on crypto assets. And they're still saying that we're going to follow Trump's footsteps. They're waiting to see what Trump's crypto plan is for America and pretty much copy it step by step. If Trump decides to do a Bitcoin reserve, South Korea is doing a Bitcoin reserve. Trump decides to use a particular crypto asset for domestic international payments as a backbone, South Korea is going to follow their footsteps. Whatever Trump's plan is when it comes to crypto assets and legislations and regulations and so on, is what South Korea is going to do. They actually said, we're going to follow his footsteps. We're just going to wait for him. So it's January 20th. He's called into power on January 20th, and we're going to see what his plan is and just follow his footsteps. Because we don't want to be left behind in this digital economy no matter what. Goes back to what I said. Once America pulls this off, which they will do, everybody, every country will be following America's footsteps. America goes pro-crypto, the world goes pro-crypto in general. That's massive positive. Massive positive. As I've been saying. Now, El Salvador is what we're going to talk about next. Moving on essentially from South Korea. But before we talk about El Salvador, let's go inside the comment section. One thing to also mention on South Korea, number one token that's purchased in South Korea is not essentially Bitcoin. It's not even Ethereum. It's actually XRP when it comes to the retail section. Now, let's go inside the comment section first. As I said previously, well, this is a live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. I read out your comments. I read out your name first and then your comments and give a response to everyone. What are your thoughts on Polkadot? It's a good project, but it's not a must-have project in my essentially perspective in any sort of a way. But it's a good project. It's a genuine project, not a must-have for me. Rate cuts don't freak out the markets. That's correct. It's all controlled algorithms and big banks. Also correct. Nothing happens by chance. Also correct. And there's not enough retail investors in sync to move the markets by billions. Also correct. When you see hundreds of millions plus coming and leaving the markets, it's always big players making moves. Also correct. Think about how many retail investors are holding for long run. Also correct. And what's in the hustle, everything you've pretty much said is what I've been saying for the longest time as well. It's all correct. The biggest money inside the market space is from institutions, but the next client are also entering is more institutions. Money inside the market space was mostly retail, but also hedge funds, which manipulate the market space to a large scale. But yeah, retail money has always been flaky. Institutional money enters a crypto project, stays with it within a minimum 5 year because they're looking at 5 year projections. It's just basically how it is. Corporate sector always wins because they have the most amount of money, which means they have the most amount of control. They will always have the most amount of control. That's why they're always like 1,000 steps ahead of everybody else. Now, El Salvador. But it's all true. El Salvador to discontinue Bitcoin wallets for the Chivo in $1.4 billion international monetary fund deal. As you all know, El Salvador is leading when it comes to Latin American countries in their Bitcoin holdings, and they have this whole Bitcoin plan and essentially a cryptocurrency hub they're trying to become. Now, El Salvador owed quite a lot of money to the International Monetary Fund, which now they've come to a deal with. You see, originally the International Monetary Fund wanted El Salvador to stop this whole Bitcoin campaign completely, and that the International Monetary Fund will help out El Salvador on their debt with them. And El Salvador said, no, we're going to think of another way to pay you back, and we're not going to stop our Bitcoin holdings. So they had this back and forward type of situation. They've come to a resolution. It's a weird one. El Salvador's agreement with the International Monetary Fund could shatter the country's state-backed Bitcoin wallet, Chivo. But it's not its overall BTC support. So they came to some sort of a compromise. El Salvador's government can still hold Bitcoin, but the Chivo program has to go away. Now, the Chivo program basically was people signing up on the retail section to the Chivo wallet program for El Salvador, and they get some sort of small amounts of Bitcoin in return, not an actual Bitcoin, but essentially Satoshis of it. Now, Bitcoin-friendly nation El Salvador will sunset or sell its Chivo crypto wallet at its scales back Bitcoin activity as a part of its terms to secure a $1.4 billion essentially International Monetary Fund loan. Stacy, director of El Salvador's National Bitcoin Office, said the decision was a part of its agreements with the International Monetary Fund. Notably, Chivo's fate will not impact BTC laws in the country, and Bitcoin will remain essentially available as a legal tender under the International Monetary Fund deal. El Salvador introduced Chivo back in August 2021, around the same time it legalized Bitcoin nationally. Chivo served as a sovereign crypto wallet to propel President Bullock's ambitious BTC agendas. Citizens received BTC rewards for signing up with Chivo at the same time, but the crypto wallet suffered several setbacks. Hackers attacked Chivo on at least 2 occasions, exposing sensitive user data and leaking essentially the wallet's code in April 2024. Despite Chivo's likely shutdown, El Salvador remains a pro-BTC powerhouse. Under the president, the country became the first jurisdiction to adapt Bitcoin as a legal tender and deploy state funds for Bitcoin essentially purchases. Since September 2021, when it legalized Bitcoin, the president of El Salvador has overseen a $270 million investment into a $1 trillion asset. El Salvador held over $632 million in Bitcoin at press time, with $362 million in unrealized profits from its Bitcoin bet. Bitcoin's rise above $100,000 triggered growth in El Salvador's bond markets, a landmark moment in the crypto history. It was the first time ever BTC's patterns impacted sovereign essentially issued debt. Other nations like Brazil and the US have also announced plans to explore Bitcoin essentially reserve laws following years of crypto skepticism. So, the International Monetary Fund has said basically to El Salvador the whole idea of Bitcoin retail section use purposes, cancel that. You can hold Bitcoin as a reserve if you want to, but retail section signing up for a Bitcoin program, scrap that completely, and we will fund you $1.4 billion, $1.5 billion or so on this deal agreement. And El Salvador agreed. So, as El Salvador essentially agreed to the essentially International Monetary Fund's deal of scrap the retail section Bitcoin funding, you can keep your own Bitcoins as a government, but scrap the whole idea of retail Bitcoins. Moral holdings. So International Monetary Fund telling El Salvador what to do when it comes to their Bitcoin holdings, but then Moral Holdings, a mega corporation inside the Bitcoin mining industry in the US, adds $1.53 billion worth of Bitcoin to its portfolio in pretty much the exact same time. The exact same time El Salvador's talking to the International Monetary Fund, and their $1.4 billion deal, Moral Holdings adds $1.5 billion to their Bitcoin holdings, assuming the $3.2 billion in weeks. Moral Holdings recently purchased 15,574 Bitcoins for $1.53 billion. This purchase is part of the broader strategy that has already been seen the company acquiring $3.2 billion worth of Bitcoin in just 6 weeks. Moral's rapid accumulation of Bitcoin highlights strong beliefs in the cryptocurrency's future and potential. The recent Bitcoin essentially purchases was funded by a $1.925 billion in proceeds from 2 convertible senior notes offerings made by Mora in late November and December of 2024. With these funds, the company brought its Bitcoin's average price of $98,529 per coin they spent. As of December 19th, 2024, this purchase brings Mora's total Bitcoin holdings to around 44,394 Bitcoins, valued at $4.45 billion. The average cost of an entire Bitcoin portfolio stands at about sorry about that. over $100,000 per coin. Mora has adapted essentially a hold strategy similar to that of a MicroStrategy, where the company holds Bitcoin and mine from operations and does not sell any of it. This strategy also includes a plan to buy more Bitcoin essentially as time goes by weekly. The company's commitment to its long-term approach shows a clear belief that Bitcoin will continue to rise in value, making an attractive asset for the future. Mora Holdings now ranks second among publicly traded companies with the largest Bitcoin holdings, right behind MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy leads and with an enormous, essentially 439,000 Bitcoins valued at over $44 billion. This holding has resulted in unrealized gains of more than $18 billion after MicroStrategy's most recent purchase of 186,780 Bitcoins. Mora's Bitcoin portfolio has grown significantly in 2024, increasing by 60.9% from January 1st to December 19th. This impressive growth, measured by BTC yields, highlights the effectiveness of Mora's strategy as the company continues to invest Bitcoin. Its position in the crypto market strengthens and its influence continues to expand. So, International Monetary Fund, essentially, International Monetary Fund telling El Salvador, you need to rethink your entire Bitcoin plans and stop doing the whole Bitcoin and retail section. First of all, telling El Salvador to sell their Bitcoins. But then you have mega corporations buying Bitcoins in the US. Then they said, okay, well, to El Salvador, we'll do a $1.4 billion deal with you, but to get rid of Bitcoin for the retail section, which makes sense because Bitcoin is not really good for transactions. But at the exact same time, Mora Holdings, massive mega corporation in the Bitcoin industry, mining corporations, there's a $1.5 billion purchase of Bitcoin. Same time, they're telling El Salvador for a $1.4 billion deal. It's funny how the world operates sometimes, where they tell one person not to do it, while the other one gets away with it. Now, Russia is what we're going to talk about next. Russia, China, and India. But before we talk about that, let's go through the comment section first. As I said previously, this is a live, which means if you do have any questions, put it down in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to answer the questions you may have. So let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into Russian news, Chinese news, Indian news. It's all mixed into one. And it's all market related. Now, when you see this, where we were here. That was the plan all along. America was never going to lose, and for people to think that they're going to lose, they should go back to sleep. I agree, JP, facts. I said last year, I think the US might use XRP. I think XRP is going to be the new dollar. Well, XRP is going to be the backbone, but I see what you mean regarding dollar. Yeah, the backbone of domestic international payments, well, the backbone of international payments as a third party, yes. Thanks for reading my comments. I thought, well, yeah, JP, you're right, 100% you're right. Thanks for reading my comments. I thought I was shadow banned again on my new account because, again, like my last account, my comments have started to get no response or attention, so I watered down comments. No, don't worry about it. Go for it. Whatever comments you may have, go for it. Put it inside the comment section. You're a very intelligent person as well. Beautiful house. Nope, it's a green screen. This is a green screen. So it says Restream up here. Restream is a platform that I use to be able to multi-stream to X and YouTube at the exact same time. So this is just a green screen. It says Restream. OF, it is a green screen. Yeah, it's a green screen. It's a green screen. Now, Russia. Russia says almost all trades with India and China is now in national currencies, which is going to put pressure on Trump to increase taxes on Russia, to increase tariffs on Russia, or increase sanctions on Russia. So here it is. President Vladimir Putin says over 90% of its trades with China is now settled in national currencies, primarily rubles and yuan, while more than 50% of its trades with India is also bypassing the dollar entirely. When Russia invaded essentially Ukraine back in 2022, the West responded with sanctions that targeted nearly every aspect of its economy, including blocking access to global payment systems like SWIFT. Faced with financial lockdowns, Moscow began pushing aggressively for trade in local currencies, turning to allies like China and India to create alternative economic pathways. Russia's trade with China has skyrocketed over the past 2 years, with both countries essentially leaning into what they call a strict partnership by 2023. The trade between the two nations hit a record-breaking of $240 billion, and economists predict that the figures will climb even higher by the end of 2024. What the difference is now is that most of its trades, over 90%, is handled in rupees or yuan. It's more in yuan than it is in rupees. The numbers don't lie. The share of yuan in Russian exports in China jumped from a laughable 0.5% in 2021 to a shocking 16% by 2022, and much more higher. Imports tell the same story, with the yuan use rising from just 4% in 2021 to 23% a year later. Meanwhile, the US dollar's dominance is fading fast. Back in 2021, nearly half, essentially 46.8% of Russia's China trade was conducted in dollars. By the end of 2023, that figure had plummeted as the yuan replaced it as the go-to currency. Even Russian banks are piling on the yuan. By December 2023, Russian banks held over $68.7 billion worth of yuan, overtaking the dollar's reserves, which had dropped to $64.7 billion. Russia is holding a hell of a lot more yuan than they're actually holding of US dollars. When it comes to India, the transition is slower. Over 50% of trades between the two nations is now conducted in local currencies, showing the appetite for the dollar alternative isn't just a Russian-China phenomenon. India, which buys a lot of Russian oil and defense essentially equipment, has been exploring similar currency arrangements as a part of its trade deals. This is part of a larger de-dollarization strategy that President Putin has been pushing for years. Speaking at recent summits at the BRICS nations, he said the dollar has discredited itself. It has become a tool for Western political agendas. While Trump has perceived friendships with Putin, there has been some sort of tensions lately between them, thanks to the former aggressive threats at BRICS nations. He told them to expect 100% tariffs if they do not follow through with the dethroning the dollar. This was even after Putin himself said he was reconsidering a favor to his friend. Still, Putin has said that he is willing to have a chat with Trump post essentially him having a sit down on January 20th. I don't know when we'll meet because he doesn't say anything about it. I haven't spoken to him at all for more than 4 years. I'm ready for it, of course, at any time, and I'll be ready to meet him if he wants. So Putin essentially saying he's open to the idea of having a sit down with Trump, and the whole de-dollarization, he's willing to scrap it depending on what Trump has to say. Now, the issue with essentially Vladimir Putin holding the majority of their currency, of their trades, is in yuan. So which means if China's economy goes sliding downhill and goes into an economic bubble, because I said every country seems to be skimming essentially a bubble. So I said how I pictured it, how I showed it to everyone is bubble, and every country is pretty much going right past it. I said there's a possibility if the numbers come out the other way, it could go into a bubble, but it seems like they're almost like skimming essentially an economic crisis type of bubble. But if China doesn't skim past and actually just goes into the bubble, then it's going to drag down Russia with it. And then that will drag down India with it. And then that will drag down the West with it, the European market space, because where does Europe get all of its oil from? India. Where does India get its oil from? Russia. So if both these countries are holding Chinese yuan and Russian ruble, China goes down, Russia goes down, India goes down, the European market space are going to struggle. Now, on the basis of essentially Vladimir Putin and so on, Russia says almost regarding that matter of BRICS nations, Vladimir Putin admits Russia's inflation is alarming signal. Is BRICS collapsing? I said a very long time ago, the chance of BRICS happening is slim to none. And, well, here it is again. Updates from BRICS. Vladimir Putin admits that Russia is going through some massive bubble crisis situations, and that is BRICS collapsing, basically. Speaking to Russian citizens, Putin outlined the government's efforts to address the rising prices. There are some issues here, namely inflation. a certain overheating of the economy, and the government and the central banks are already tasked with essentially with bringing the tempo down, Putin said, according to Reuters translations. By the way, whatever happens in these BRICS nations regarding India, China, Russia, if things go south for them, it will affect us as well. For a small period of time, depending on how bad the effect is. Russia's consumer price index reached 8.9% in November. And again, this is all because of the Biden administration. Because the Biden administration essentially started a war pushing Ukraine into Russia, and then Russia fighting back, and Russia getting sanctioned, and Russia deciding to go the path they did. Russia's consumer price index reached 8.9%. Everything that's going wrong in this world is because of Biden's administration. Russia's consumer price index reached 8.9% in November compared to the same period last year, up from 8.5% in October. Food prices, particularly for milk and dairy products, were key drivers of increase. Inflationary pressures have been compounded by a weakened ruble, which has elevated essentially the cost of imports and soaring military expenditures. Straining labor and production resources, Russia's economy under Putin has been interesting since it invaded Ukraine in 2022. Of course, inflation is such an alarming signal. Putin remarked, as reported by Interfax, he noted that the wages have grown essentially by 9% in real terms, slightly outpacing inflation, while disposable incomes have also risen. The comments come as Russia's central bank was widely expected essentially to rise its benchmark's interest rates by 200 basis points to 23%, marking the highest levels in a decade. Putin particularly essentially attributed raising the prices to international sanctions, stating that external restrictions have increased logistic costs, and however, he also criticized domestic monetary policies, implying that alternative streaks could have been employed to curb inflation. There are also subjective factors, and that there are also shortcomings, he said, emphasizing the need for timely decision to stabilize prices. Meanwhile, geopolitical tensions over global currency dynamics have intensified since Donald Trump won the US presidential elections in November. At this year's BRICS summit in Russia, Putin introduced the BRICS Pay, a payment system designed to bypass the dollar-centric global financial systems. However, US President-elect Donald Trump warned of severe consequences for nations seeking to sideline the dollar. Trump threatened 100% tariffs on BRICS countries that attempt to replace the dollar in trade, stating they should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful world of the US economy. Although the US dollar's dominance has declined over the years, it remains the world's reserve currency. Given the challenges of de-dollarizations and the potentials for US retaliation measures, including freezing the dollar's holdings, BRICS efforts to move away from the dollar are expected to be gradual and limited by the looks of it. BRICS, originally an economic concept, has evolved into a bloc with political undertones, and the group, initially comprising of Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and South Africa, expanded last year to include Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the UAE. However, this expansion has not been universally welcomed. India's central bank governor, Das, clarified on December 6 that the country is not pursuing a de-dollarization or working towards a BRICS common currency. It is true, out of the BRICS founding members, India, China, Russia, and South Africa, and Brazil, India was the first country to say, who said de-dollarization? We're not going to be de-dollarizing anybody. And that's only because after Trump made the speech he made, India backed out of the whole BRICS situation very quickly. They completely backed out. Das, the Indian central bank essentially governor, made a statement following Trump's sharp criticism of BRICS' ambitions to undermine the dollar supremacy. You can see how scared everybody is of Trump, which is a good thing. And Argentina's President Javier, also known for his ultra-capitalist stance, withdrew from the BRICS shortly after taking office in December 2023. He cited ideological differences, refusing to ally with communists. Similarly, Saudi Arabia's engagements with BRICS remains ambiguous. Ahead of the October summit in Kazan, Russia and the Saudi government reaffirmed from essentially affirming its membership status, while Saudi foreign ministers and policy and Prince Faisal bin Farhan attended the summit and expressed a commitment to strengthening ties with BRICS. He stopped short of pledging a full membership. Saudi Arabia's unclear stance promoted Russia's foreign ministry to retract an earlier statement referring to BRICS members. Criticism of the bloc's recent expansion has also emerged from Jim O'Neill, the economist who coined the term BRICS, as questioned its directions. Speaking at the event in London, O'Neill dismissed the group's evolution into a political entity and described its expansions as a move driven by more symbolism than substance. So, Russia, BRICS, is it going to happen? No, by the looks of it. Because India is the first one to go, hell no, de-dollarization, never going to happen. China is going to go on the, look, if China is holding essentially if China gets 100% tariff imposed on their country, it would put pressure obviously on the US as well if China gets tariffed 100%. But China will go into much more deep situations because they're also very close to economic crisis situation. Russia is very close to an economic crisis situation as well. As I pretty much said, every country, economic bubble, every country right now is near an economic bubble crisis. And every country is slightly passing the economic bubble. If they get tagged with tariffs, especially 100% tariffs, they're going straight into the economic bubble and they're not going to be passing it in any sort of a way. So I don't think any country will be dumb enough to risk an economic crisis for their entire economy just to de-dollarize their countries. But let's not forget also, number one currency in the world is US dollars in the fiat traditional world. Number one currency in the digital world as a stable coin is the US dollars. And we have over 290 different types of stable coins. And you know what? One thing all of those stable coins have in common to become a stable coin? They're all purchasing US bonds. The more stable coins like Tether, USDC, Ripple, and so on keep on purchasing US bonds, what happens? The US dollar gets strengthened. So if anybody is still out there thinking the US dollar is going to go away and the US is going to fall in any sort of situation, no matter what Biden does, the US will never fall. Okay, no matter what the Biden administration does, the US will never fall. But if anybody's out there thinking essentially that the US dollar is going to go away, it's never going to go away. For a stable coin like Tether's USDT or Circle's USDC or Ripple's RLUSD to survive and be a stable coin, they need to buy US bonds and T-bills, which means every time they purchase a US bond or T-bills or US equivalent dollars, what happens to the US dollars? It becomes strengthened. So US dollar is never going away, never going to go away. And the more the whole BRICS nations get together and try to de-dollarize, the more things will go bad for them. Russia is right now feeling the pressure. But as I've said previously, a lot of people assume if BRICS doesn't happen, XRP won't be able to move. It can, and it will. Every BRICS nation has a CBDC. They have two, retail CBDC, wholesale CBDC. They're all on the Bank of International Settlements. China, Russia, Brazil, South Africa, they're all under the Bank of International Settlements. Bank of International Settlements, PDF document titled Cross-Border Payments, Public Information. Ripple's on the list already. But we've also seen the testings of India, who's a part of BRICS, on XRP. Legend XRP, they've talked about it. We've seen PDF documentations from Russia's central banks. They've already talked about XRP on the uses. So no matter what happens on the matters of BRICS happens or BRICS doesn't happen, XRP is still good. But what is the good part about that is that the US is still in control because nobody wants China in control. And if you are somebody in the US who wants the US to fall, who wants the US dollars to fall, yeah, you need to see a doctor. Honestly, if you're somebody in the US, because I've seen a lot of people, tweet about this, or they're living in the US and they want the US dollars to fall. It's like they don't understand the consequences of that. If the US dollars falls and you live in the US, what do you think is going to happen? But yeah, you honestly need to see a doctor or something about that one. Get checked up on brain cells. But yeah, either way you look at it, XRP is good. BRICS happens, BRICS doesn't happen, we're good. Now, before we go to the next news, which is Ripple and SEC related, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see where we're at. But yeah, that was the update on BRICS today that it came out, essentially, that Russia is starting to feel the pressure and that the whole de-dollarization is not really the move they want to be taking forward. And which is what we needed to happen. We need America's economy to be strong. We need the US dollars to be strong. So the crypto market is strong moving into 2025. Thanks for reading my comments. I thought I was, no, don't worry about it. I already read that one. Okay, I was here. New to the channel and like the way you're bringing crypto news, actually talking about finance and things that matter. Let's go. What's in the hustle? Thank you so much for the kind words. Tune in every single time. Tune in every single night, Monday to Friday. This live is. But you can only kick the can for so long, right? Yes, true. Did you? Hi, Miles. Do you think with XRP it will be overnight switch or more of a steady climb? In my perspective, XRP is more of a steady climb than an overnight switch. But I would say consider both outcomes. In other words, consider variable change. But either way, XRP has a steady climb or an overnight switch. Its future is guaranteed. In my point of view, not financial advice in any sort of a way, in my point of view, steady climb for XRP or overnight situation for XRP, either way it goes, XRP's future is guaranteed to be amazing. Did you speak? But I personally think it's going to be steady climb rather than the other one. It's like a movement. But steady climb isn't, steady climb. It's more like jump, steady climb. Did you speak about XDC? I haven't yet. But in general, XDC is a great project. Huge correction is on the horizon. By the looks of it, yes. Before Trump comes into power. The Biden administration is doing their best to stifle everything they can. I said keep under consideration regarding from now until January 20th. I've been saying this for a matter of a week or 2 weeks. I've been saying this. Consider now until January 20th. Anything could happen from now until January 20th. Biden's administration is still in control. They're a bunch of circus freaks. They can pretty much pull anything they want. Now, Ripple versus SEC, the big topic. What's going to happen there? Because we still don't know. Well, we know what's going to be happening. This is a dismissal settlements. But here is the thing. There are conversations happening on the matters of SEC and Ripple's case. The conversations are basically that the SEC needs to drop this case. Because they said going into 2025, January 20th passes. Gary Gensler resigns on January 20th. And the SEC still hasn't dropped the Ripple case. It's going to backfire on the SEC tremendously. So they need to drop the Ripple case beforehand if they want the SEC to look good. As Paul Atkins is set to replace Gary Gensler at the SEC, a new warning from J.W. Vert suggests that the agency risks a severe consequence if it doesn't drop the Ripple case. When the SEC launched its crusade against cryptocurrencies, and Ripple in particular, it didn't expect to face resistance from the federal judge, essentially systems itself. The federal judges are challenging the SEC's aggressive interpretation of an old securities law, which may eventually lead to the Supreme Court getting involved. Let's not forget, two people were essentially the enemies for the crypto space from the SEC. One was Gary Gensler, the other one was Caroline Crenshaw, and they're both losing their jobs. But one of them is resigning, the other one is just losing her job. Caroline is losing her job. She's worse than Gary Gensler, and she's in the SEC. Gary Gensler is just resigning January 20th. But these two people essentially affected the market space and Ripple in general. And the reason why I bring this up is because if these two people are going to go away, then they have to drop the Ripple case. Otherwise, the Supreme Court is going to get involved, and at that point, it's a pro-crypto SEC, which makes no sense for the Ripple case to continue. So drop the Ripple case, in other words. So the dispute began with the SEC back in 2020 against lawsuit against Ripple Labs, claiming that XRP's token was an unregistered security. However, the judge ruled that XRP sales on public exchanges were not securities and transactions, a decision that the SEC is appealing. and so on. The judge Rakoff took a broader view on the SEC against Terraform Labs, suggesting that crypto tokens could be considered securities no matter how they are sold. The difference in judicial opinions has created legal uncertainty, which may lead to a Supreme Court stepping in. It's all because of Gary Gensler. He's created such a confusion inside the crypto space where one judge is saying it's not a security, another judge is saying any crypto could be a security, and then you have the CFTC with a different opinion, and then you have the Congress with a different opinion, and then you have Elizabeth Warren with a different opinion. He's created such a confusion where it's just one big ginormous mess. But you know how you make this ginormous mess go away? Drop the biggest case the SEC started inside the crypto space. Ripple case. You drop the Ripple case, everything else will get dropped too. Settled or dismissed. Notably, Judge Rakoff also interpretation could have serious consequences for the crypto industry. His views of the Howey test suggest that even trades of Luna tokens by people unrelated to Terraform Labs could be considered securities. If this reasoning is followed further, even Bitcoin could be considered a security because its developers maintain the network. This could result in a broad expansion of the SEC's control, affecting everything from precious metals to airline reward programs. This lack of clear boundaries raises concerns, especially among legal experts and market participants. The SEC's appeal of the Ripple case could lead to problems, which could further usher the Supreme Court to step in. The case could be used to limit the SEC's power, stopping it from making decisions without clear approval from Congress. It is true. The longer they carry on this whole Ripple case scenario, even though Caroline Crenshaw is not going to get voted in, she's losing her job, even though Gary Gensler is resigning on January 20th, the longer they keep on carrying on the Ripple case, the whole appeal situation, the worse it's looking. And if the decision goes to a Supreme Court, then everything the SEC wants to do, they have to get permission from Congress because it just shows that they're incompetent of making decisions. And I don't think people like Hester Pierce inside the SEC or Mark inside the SEC or even Paul Atkins, who's going to be replacing Gary Gensler, wants the SEC to be an incompetent government department that has to keep on going to Congress to ask questions. So it's better for them to drop this case. Coinbase is also battling the SEC with the court questionings of the SEC's refusal to set clear rules for the crypto tradings, which could lead to Supreme Court involvements. By using the Howey test too broadly against legitimate crypto companies like Ripple, Coinbase, Kraken, and Uniswap without clear rules, the SEC is essentially risking limiting this important legal tool through a Supreme Court trial. Now, this SEC aggressive approach to cryptocurrencies could backfire and harm its own authority. Genuinely, Supreme Court actually it somehow leads up to a Supreme Court. The SEC's future is done in America when it comes to crypto assets. And I don't think they're going to let that happen. So it's drop the Ripple case and the SEC gets to walk away into the sunset. You don't drop the Ripple case, the SEC is going to be stifled by Congress on any movements they do. And the last thing I believe is that the SEC wants Congress breathing down their necks on every decision they make in the future. The solution to that basically is drop the Ripple case. If you don't want Congress breathing down your necks on every decision you make under Trump, you got to drop the Ripple case. And the SEC knows this. By continuing this appeal in the Ripple case and not providing clear rules, the SEC may prompt the Supreme Court to limit its powers. This could weaken the SEC's ability to regulate crypto and impair its long-term goals, especially after the 2024 elections. So, JetW, essentially, many perspectives have came out on this matter, and all of the perspectives are pretty much saying regarding higher up seats, they're all suggesting that the SEC needs to drop the Ripple case now. It's taken it too far. They need to drop it. Otherwise, Congress is going to be breathing down their necks for the next 4 years. I don't think Hester Pierce wants that. I don't think Mark wants that. I don't think many good people that are actually inside the SEC want that. And I think they should be dropping it. And I think they might do as well very soon. Who knows? Also, very soon, I don't mean tomorrow by any sort of way. It has to be when Trump's in power. Because you know how Gary Gensler is. He doesn't care. He'll drag down the ship with him. Miles, do you think once XRP reaches its peak, its coming bull run, that will drop much after that? No. Okay, good question. Regarding XRP reaching its peak in this coming bull run, will it drop we're currently in a bull run. It's just a very manipulated one. But regarding the regarding XRP, will it drop if it goes higher in price in 2025 and so on? Look, market turbulence is one thing to always consider. No market space continues going up or essentially continues going down unless it's a meme coin, then it just continues going down. But you're always going to have ups and downs because of turbulence is always going to be there. One person said to me once, is the market going to be manipulated going forward? And I said the entire world is manipulated. Always consider that fact. So yes, the market space in general is manipulated. But if we get the rules and regulations coming in, if we get the adoption rate happening, then there's a least likely chance of XRP fluctuating to a much more lower price because it's being used. The main purpose of a cryptocurrency is utility. Not all cryptocurrencies have utility. Some are just created for no apparent reason, but some are created with a purpose. And the ones that are created with purpose are going to thrive on the regulations. The faster we go into regulations, the faster they get adapted and used. And once they're being used, market cycles would not really affect them. For example, if XRP is being used, now let's assume we have the case is dismissed or dropped, we have regulations and XRP is being used as a backbone for a banking system for international payments. And the world is doing international payments back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. Every country has the regulations and needs, and XRP is being used. And the market comes out and goes a little bit sideways, or we go into a bear market. Is XRP going to get affected? No, because it's being used 24/7. The reason why the crypto assets right now get affected, and the reason why they're still following Bitcoin's footsteps, in most cases, is because they're not being used. The moment these crypto assets like XRP, XLM, XDC, HBAR, AVAX, Cardano, or so on, a multitude of cryptocurrencies that have use case purposes, utility purposes, get used because there's regulations in place, worldwide regulations, because institutions are now using them, because banks are now using them, then the whole market cycle isn't going to get affected. These crypto assets won't get affected because they're being used on a 24/7 basis. If XRP is being used by banks, for example, if it's being used by banks under regulations on a 24/7 basis internationally, do you think market cycles will be affecting it if every bank is doing transactions back and forward every 3 seconds to 2 seconds? Billions of dollars to trillions of dollars are being sent all over the world. It wouldn't affect it in any sort of a way because now utilities kicked in. The reason why the crypto market space is following this whole Bitcoin trend is because their utility hasn't kicked in yet. Why hasn't their utility kicked in yet? Regulations. We have regulations, we have utility. No regulations means no utility, which means they follow Bitcoin's footsteps. Jerome Powell comes out and goes, we don't believe in crypto, market goes downwards. You know why? Because utility is not used. Now, let's just presume we have regulations and utility in motion. Jerome Powell comes out and goes, I don't believe in crypto. Nobody cares because the banks are still using XRP at that particular time and doing transactions back and forward. So him coming out afterwards, after we have regulations, after we have utility, and coming out doing some ridiculous speech on, I don't believe in crypto, nobody cares because now they're doing transactions. We have regulations and utility. So no regulations, no utility, everybody follows Bitcoin's footsteps. Regulations equals utility, and everybody goes their separate ways. The best part is 2025, we're heading towards regulations. Trump is bringing out the regulations. First 100 days will be absolutely critical for the crypto space. They're going to get rid of the SAB1. They're going to get rid of the SAB 121 Act, which is where banks are not allowed to hold crypto assets where they want to, which is essentially cold storage wallets. They have to hold it as liabilities on their balance sheets, which is one of the reasons why banks in America didn't use crypto assets. Another reason why banks in America didn't work with crypto companies is because the FDIC chairman sent out 20 emails saying you're not allowed to work with crypto companies. So there's two reasons why banks in America were not using crypto assets. One, they had to hold it as liabilities on their balance sheets, which nobody wants to do. And because the SEC said they have to do this, because Gary Gensler said you have to do this, and Congress said it's a stupid idea, and Biden administration stood behind Gary Gensler and said to Congress, we will veto you if you go against Gary Gensler. But now that all of this is going away and Trump's coming into power and we're getting regulations, it equals utility. Regulations equals utility, equals adoption, equals everybody goes their separate paths. Not overnight separate paths, but moving towards separate paths. So next time someone comes out and does a dumb speech and goes, I don't believe in crypto, nobody cares, because now we have regulations, now we have essentially utility, now we have adoption. Full stop. And the market doesn't follow one particular crypto asset because they're all on separate paths. That's the bigger picture. 2025 is where the market goes into regulations because of Trump. And everybody already said they're following Trump's footsteps. Even today, you heard it from South Korea's prime minister. South Korea is going through some sort of martial law situation. They're going close to their 2008 crisis situation. But still, the prime minister of South Korea today came out and said, we're still going to follow Trump's footsteps. They said if Trump comes out with rules and regulations, we're following Trump's footsteps. Trump comes up with a Bitcoin reserve, we're following Trump's footsteps. And this country is going through a martial law situation, but they still don't want to get left behind from the crypto space, and they want to follow America's footsteps. This is what America brings to the table. But better in fact, this is what Trump brings to the table, where everybody will be following his footsteps. Biggest market space in the world is about to go pro-crypto, 2025, regulations, utility, adoption leading into it, which means everybody will follow their footsteps. They've said already they're going to follow their footsteps. Hong Kong said they're going to follow America's footsteps because of Donald Trump. Japan said they're going to follow America's footsteps. South Korea, even today, mentioned they're going to follow America's footsteps. Latin American countries said they're going to follow America's footsteps. The EU said they don't want to get left behind from Donald Trump's crypto plans. The UK said they don't want to get left behind from Donald Trump's crypto plans. We're heading towards that. We're heading towards regulations. Regulations, utility, adoption, the bigger picture. And then, honestly, next time somebody like Jerome Powell comes out and goes, I don't believe in crypto, or we can't change the laws on crypto, or whatever, it doesn't really affect it anymore, because now we're in regulations, now we're in utility, and now we're in adoption. And every crypto project that has a purpose, a utility, is on separate paths. That's the big picture. So, on that note, we've also reached the endings of tonight's live. Don't ever forget the bigger picture. All of this, which is happening right now, is just market turbulence, which creates another buying opportunity before we go into the 2025 regulations. So don't get affected. The bigger picture is still there. Don't get sidetracked in any sort of a way. And I know for a fact, nobody inside the CMF will ever get sidetracked, because I believe in everyone inside the CMF will always do the right thing. But that is the bigger picture. And that's where we're headed. And as much as Biden's circus freaks want to slow down the market space, want to get Jerome Powell, to get a random journalist to ask Jerome Powell, can you hold Bitcoin? Will you ever hold Bitcoin? Jerome Powell goes, no, we can't hold Bitcoin. We never will. The rules will never change. But then today you have Senator Cynthia Luminous coming out and saying the Fed can hold Bitcoin. We're looking into it. But Jerome Powell didn't mention this yesterday. He could have, but he didn't. So as much as Biden's circus freaks of administrations want to control the market space, create random wars, and stifle crypto innovation, their raid of disastrous power is coming to an end January 20th. So, and as I said, keep in mind, from now until January 20th, these people can pull anything. But Trump is still aiming for that title of regulations, crypto adoption, crypto hub. And even JP Morgan yesterday, I read out news from JP Morgan's analysts. They said they believe in Trump's authority and power, and that they believe Trump will bring the crypto regulations, is what JP Morgan said yesterday. That essentially Donald Trump will bring in the crypto regulations, is what JP Morgan said yesterday. So on those notes, we have come to the endings of tonight's live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, this was the CMF Live. It stands for Crypto Mouse Family. And you can tune into this live Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time, Monday to Friday, 11:25 p.m. UK time onwards, where I talk about the most recent news that's happening around the world in terms of cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, regulations, vital information for you to know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. Drop a follow, drop a like, retweet, comment, share if you already haven't. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe if you already haven't. If you're watching this on essentially X and you haven't commented, you haven't liked, you haven't retweeted, please do. If you haven't followed me on X and you're watching us on X, follow me on X. And tune in every single night. If you're watching this even for the first time ever, What's in the Hustle was good to meet you as well. Tune in every single night, Monday to Friday. So you can tune in tomorrow. This was episode 227 of the CMF Live. episode 227. Tomorrow will be episode 228 of the CMF Live. We're already on episode 227 right now, which is incredible. I'll be seeing everybody tomorrow. Same timing as usual. Great answer. Thank you, Miles. No problem anytime. Ray, let's go. Great live, Miles. As usual. Good night, Miles, and the CMF. Let's go, Jason. Thanks again, Miles. Appreciate you. Good night, CMF. Sam. See you tomorrow sometime as usual as well. Thank you, Miles. You're truly amazing. Good night, and see you tomorrow. Mike, see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual. Regulations, utility adoption, all facts. The Biden administration and his circus freaks days are numbered. 2025, he will come. Great show. Take care, Miles, and the CMF. Ray, let's go, brother. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night. God bless. Golden Dragon, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Definitely will be tuning in again. Respect. Let's go. What's in the hustle? It was great to meet you for the first time ever as well. You're a very intelligent person as well. Thanks, Legend. Night and day, CMF. Shelly, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Thanks, Miles. Have a good night and day. CMF, let's go. Ghost Burner. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Great job, Miles. Scott, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Thanks, Miles. Scott, let's go. Share the live. Leave a comment. Facts. Great delivery of the news. Let's go, Susie. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. I'll be seeing everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Mike, see you tomorrow, but at the same time as usual as well. I'll be seeing everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Also, if you haven't joined join our Telegram page as well. If you haven't joined already, join the CMF. This live that you're watching has a Telegram page. It's completely free, by the way. Everything I do is completely free. Join the Telegram page if you already haven't. It's Crypto Mouse Family, one word. If you can't find it, direct message me or put a comment and I'll give you the link. Also, if you watch us on X, join our X communities page of this live. The Crypto Mouse Family Lounge for this live on X communities as well. There can only be one. Miles, the GOAT, my mentor. Let's go, Scott. There can only be one. Let's go, Connor. Good night, Miles. Khalid, let's go. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Share the live and leave a comment. Scott, let's go. I'll be seeing everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are around the world. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. CMF, see you tomorrow, same time as usual.